Well, there's a lot covered in the local papers about how it sort of evolved from ideation to like creation. But so I think it goes back to 2002. So started, in my mind at least, as an idea when I was thinking about running for council, was one of the sort of platform issues that I wanted to add to my brochure, to my campaign, which almost was a run for mayor as opposed to councillor. But then I got some advice from a good friend of mine, Bud Shiro, who said, well, you're a little young. I was 24. You're a little young for running for mayor. Maybe think about council, and you may not want to run on like a home run idea, like creating a transit system. That might be a bit beyond what people are prepared to accept. So I thought on that and didn't run on that. Didn't include that as one of the ideas. However, the mayoral candidate David Bell during the campaign period, during the forum, actually sort of floated the idea maybe it's time for a transit system for Selkirk. So those are kind of like, at least in terms of the electoral side of things, how it was sort of seeded as an idea. And then in 2004. I got a call from Bill Chartier, who was the owner-operator of Will's Taxi. Will's Taxi actually formerly was owned by my family, the Magnuson family. And so there was a relationship with the Magnuson family at that time. He knew about that relationship, knew that I was sort of a descendant of the family, and called me up and said, I think that, in the long run, the city needs a transit system. I know it's going there anyways, and it'll hurt my business. So, why not provide it as a business? And so it was a local business person wanting to explore that idea, and so I said, sure, let's have a conversation. I met with him a few times. We talked about it. We both had some takeaways in terms of what work had to get done, and so we did that. And then it was kind of harder and harder to get a hold of him, and to finally he come. We did kind of force the issue and went to the business and said, hey, we got to talk about this. We're going to move this forward. It was after there was a story that was running in the local paper, and he said, I've looked at it for financial, and I can't make it work, and so I just can't move forward with this. But by that time, like I said, there had been a story in the paper. It was kind of an idea that had taken a bit of roots, and people were talking about it. There seemed to be some support on council for it, so I decided to pursue it anyways, right? So proposed to council that we establish a task force to take a look at what a transit system for Selkirk would look like. That got approved. We started our initial work there. That had to get extended. There's lots of mitigating circumstances for why that took as long as it did. Part of it was knowing full well that the entire community was not on board. There was a few people, prominent people in the community said, well, why do we actually need one? We've never had one before. It's not really necessary. So it was clear that there needed to be a lot more public conversation on it, right? It's a big idea and needed to be evolved. So we did public surveys and looked at the actual expenses. I'm conflating a lot of time, probably a 4-year time period in there, but on my vacation, I went to Airdrie, Alberta. Like I was going through, we were driving to Kamloops, and I made a special stop at Airdrie, Alberta to meet with their transit system. They had just started one in Airdrie. And so there was a lot of sort of personal time put into research, not a lot of staff time at this point. And then the committee, we did workshops and all kinds of like public engagement, had a citizen engagement group. And so Bud Shero was actually on that group. The soon-to-be, or eventual Ian Alexander at the time, now Dr. Ian Alexander, who will probably do great things in the city, has already done great things, was on that committee. And then we had two former City of Winnipeg transit employee representatives, so Joe Swisko and Alex Milner, who has since passed in 2018, but they were instrumental in sort of crafting the final report from the task force. that suggested that we take a serious hard look at this. Here's a proposed route. Here's how you could make it work. So all of the stuff that eventually made it through to the actual system really was founded in those initial ideas, and there's not a lot of variation from that. We hired, after that the task force completed its work, council approved the creation of a standing committee, and then approved funding in budget to hire a consulting firm to do a business plan and feasibility study. And we started having conversations with the province of Manitoba about what funding would look like. So we did the feasibility study and business plan. It was more feasibility study because when we got that approved by council, adopted, it was basically very much the same route, same concept about having a nonprofit organization do the day-to-day operations, looking at the Selkirk and District Handy Bus organization, which was already operating the paratransit service in the region. So all that was part of our initial task force work. The proposal that we made there just sort of more formalized and had the stamp of approval of a small system expert. And then the province said, we're interested, however, we need a business plan. So we hired iTrans again to do a business plan, which is really just a lot more fine detail about how you would get it up and running. And that, I believe, finished up in 2009, into 2010. And then it was full court press on getting the province to commit. They had a 50-50 transit funding program. So basically, they split the net loss in whatever transit system they were funding. So City of Winnipeg, Brandon, Thompson, and Flin Flon. I think Flin Flon had theirs at the time. But yeah, so whatever the net loss was after fare and advertising sales and stuff, they would split with the municipality. It had been a program that was cut by the Filman government. The Duer government brought it back in. And so we wanted to get included under that program, and so worked a lot with the MLA at the time, Greg Duer, to make that happen, and eventually they approved that, and that was kind of the final piece. We had transit was a go. We established a reserve for saving for the capital requirements of the fund, and we got a grant. Capital grant money to purchase buses. We ordered them and then received the buses, and we were ready to go for May of 2011. Yeah, so that's kind of, in a nutshell, 7 years of lots and lots of work.